April 29, 1945. Late morning. Just outside Dachau, Germany. The air smells wrong. It's a sharp, sweet stench. It doesn't belong to spring. The trees are green. The Bavarian countryside looks peaceful, but as the first American soldiers step off the road, something is off. Their boots crunch over something that isn't gravel, ash. You can almost hear it before you see it. Silence, no gunfire, no shouting, just the hum of flies, and the distant clank of metal inside the compound. A white painted gate comes into view. Iron letters curve across the top. Arbeit matched Frei. Work sets you free. Lieutenant William Walsh stops. He didn't mean to. He crossed France under artillery fire. He saw men bleed out in ditches. None of that prepared him for what waits beyond this gate. Rail cars sit on the siding. Doors open. Inside, bodies are stacked where they fell. Some wear striped uniforms. Some are naked. None are moving. An American soldier vomits into the grass. Another just stares. His rifle hangs loose in his hands. Word spreads fast. Dachau. A concentration camp. Not a prison camp. Not a labor camp. Something else. Something darker. The smell is death. Layered and old. Soaked into the earth. When the SS guards see the Americans, they hesitate. Some try to surrender. Others run. A few stand rigid. Hands raised. Faces blank. They are young and old. Some barely out of their teens. They wear black uniforms and silver death's head insignia. Until now, they were gods inside these walls. Now, they are prisoners. News reaches nearby units within minutes. Patton's Third Army is advancing hard through southern Germany. They have seen combat since North Africa. They liberated towns. They buried friends. But Dachau is different. Captain Felix Sparks arrives with his battalion. He steps through the gate. Something inside him snaps. Piles of bodies line the camp road. Survivors' skeletal men with sunken eyes stagger forward. Hands reach out. They barely look human. Some try to salute Sparks later, says it felt like stepping into hell. And realizing hell was real. The SS guards are herded near a coal yard, disarmed, counted, made to sit on the ground. They do not resist. Then someone fires a shot. No one knows who first pulled the trigger. Maybe a soldier who saw the rail cars. Maybe someone who looked into a barracks and understood in a single glance. What had been done for 12 years, another shot follows. And another. American soldiers lose control. Discipline fades. The line between combat and revenge disappears. SS guards fall. Some try to crawl away. Others scream. Some make no sound at all. Captain Sparks runs toward the firing, shouting for it to stop, firing his pistol into the air. Pushing men aside, for a moment, it looks unstoppable, fueled by rage, disbelief, and the unbearable weight of Dachau. Then, it ends. The ground is littered with bodies in black uniforms. Survivors inside the camp watch. Some cheer weakly. Some cry, some turn away. Justice, revenge, mercy words feel meaningless here. Nothing balances what has happened. Within hours, reports are written. Statements taken. The incident noted carefully. Several SS guards were killed after surrendering. No adjectives. No emotion. Just facts. But the paper begins to travel. Up the chain of command. Across the Atlantic. Into rooms far from Dachau. Rooms where the air smells of ink and cigars. Not ash and death in London. Prime Minister Winston Churchill will read those reports, and he will face a question no victory speech can answer. What do you do when justice and vengeance arrive, wearing the same uniform? April 30th, 1945. London. Late afternoon, the cabinet war rooms are dimly lit. Maps line the walls. pins and markers tracing armies that are crumbling under the weight of Allied advances. A clock ticks steadily. Outside, the city bears scars of nearly 6 years of war buildings blackened. Streets quiet, citizens exhausted but vigilant. Winston Churchill sits at a heavy oak table, hunched over a sheaf of reports. His face, usually so animated, is taut. His eyes skim the pages again and again, as if rereading might change the words. The report in question is short but devastating. The language is neutral, almost bureaucratic, following the liberation of Dachau. Several SS guards were killed by American troops after surrendering. Witnesses report the events were immediate upon discovery of the camp's conditions. Churchill pinches the bridge of his nose. He has read countless dispatches of battlefield heroism, of towns liberated, of enemy forces defeated. He has received reports of bombing raids, civilian casualties, the collapse of Nazi command structures. But this feels different. He knows Patton, knows the man's temperament. Bold, aggressive, unapologetic. A soldier's soldier. He also knows the magnitude of what Dachau represents. Thousands of innocent men, women, and children, murdered, starved, worked to death. It is impossible not to feel the righteous fury that could drive a man to act outside orders. Yet, Churchill is a politician as well as a general in spirit. Orders, discipline, the rule of law, these are the threads holding civilization together. And if Allied soldiers can execute prisoners, even SS guards, what message does that send to the world? What precedent does it set when the war ends? He leans back in his chair. Fingers tap the table. He imagines a world where these actions are celebrated openly. Headlines in neutral newspapers: American soldiers execute prisoners. Allies hailed as heroes on one side, condemned as murderers on the other. A young aide enters, carrying more reports. Churchill does not look up. "What do you think, Mr. Prime Minister?" The aide asks. Churchill finally lifts his gaze. His eyes are steely, tired, alive with the weight of responsibility. "Patton," he says slowly, almost to himself, "is a warrior. But even warriors must answer to something greater than themselves. The question is not what is felt here." He taps his chest. "But what will be seen out there?" He folds the report, sets it carefully atop others. "I must write," he continues, "to make clear that while the crimes discovered at Dachau are unforgivable, the actions of our troops must reflect the law we claim to defend. Otherwise, we become the thing we fight against." Churchill calls for a ciphered telegram to be sent to Patton immediately. He does not summon him to London. He cannot risk public scandal or further escalation. But the message is precise, formal, and unyielding. Ensure all troops understand the rules of engagement. No prisoner under any circumstances is to be harmed after surrender. Yet, behind the discipline and the orders, there is something else in Churchill's mind. The horror of Dachau does not fade with paperwork or telegraphs. It clings, it haunts. He knows that for soldiers on the ground, the line between righteous anger and vengeance can vanish in seconds. And he knows that history will judge not only the crimes of the Nazis, but also the restraint or lack thereof, those who stand against them. He stares at the map of Germany spread across the table. Cities burn. Rail lines are cut. Armies crumble. And in the middle of it all, Dachau sits, a dark blot that refuses to be ignored. He exhales slowly, almost imperceptibly. And somewhere across the Channel and the Atlantic, Patton reads the message and feels the weight of authority, pressing against the firestorm of emotion that still rages inside his men. The question remains: can discipline survive in a war so close to the end that the blood of the guilty and innocent alike stains every step forward? Patton's response, May 1st, 1945, Southern Germany. Late morning, General. George S. Patton reads the telegram in his tent. The map on the table is smeared with pencil marks, indicating the last pushes of his armored divisions. Outside, the hum of engines and the occasional crackle of gunfire remind him that the war is far from over. Even if the end feels close, he leans back in his chair, hands steepled, eyes narrowed. The words from London are clear, firm, and, to him, almost naive. Ensure all troops understand the rules of engagement. No prisoner, under any circumstances, is to be harmed after surrender. Patton's mind drifts back to Dachau. He sees the faces of his men as they walk through the gate, the stench, the skeletal survivors reaching out with hollow eyes. He hears the shouted orders, the sound of rifles. The silence afterward broken only by sobs and whispers. He remembers Captain Sparks' words. It felt like stepping into hell and realizing hell was real. Patton does not flinch from the truth. He knows his soldiers acted in a moment of human horror. And yet, he knows Churchill is right. Discipline cannot vanish, even at the sight of evil incarnate. History will remember not only the atrocities of the Nazis, but also the restraint or lack thereof shown by those fighting them. He calls his senior officers together. Brigadier General Hobart Gay and Major General Clarence Hubner enter, faces grim. Patton sets the telegram in front of them without a word. "This," he says, his voice low but sharp, "is from the Prime Minister. We are soldiers, not executioners. Understand? We enforce the law, not vengeance." The officers nod, tight-lipped. They know the storm in Patton's mind is not over yet. He walks to the map, points to Dachau, and then to Munich, to Nuremberg, to Berlin. "The world will watch every step we take now," he says. "We cannot give them reason to call us monsters, even if the enemy deserved it. Our actions now define the victory, not just the defeat of the Nazis." Patton pauses, his hands gripping the edge of the table. He allows himself a rare moment of vulnerability. "I do not condone what happened at Dachau," he admits. "But I also do not condemn the anger, the shock, the horror my men faced. It is natural. And yet, natural or not, it cannot guide our actions anymore. Discipline comes first. Discipline saves us from becoming the monsters we fight." Outside, the camp is quiet. Survivors are being treated, the dead removed, and the SS prisoners counted once more under the watchful eyes of officers. Patton knows the memory of what happened will linger in the minds of his men. They will remember it long after the war ends, in letters home, in dreams. In nightmares, he drafts a new order to all troops in the area, emphasizing restraint, the lawful treatment of prisoners, and the necessity of reporting any breach. He also writes privately a letter to his wife, where he admits the difficulty of balancing vengeance with duty. As the ink dries, Patton feels the weight of leadership, the heavy, crushing responsibility of guiding men through the end of a war where moral clarity and raw emotion collide, even as the war enters its final days. He knows the hardest battles are not always fought with tanks or rifles. Sometimes they are fought inside the mind, against impulses that can never be fully erased. And somewhere, across the Atlantic, Churchill reads the follow-up reports, understanding that the orders have been received, but also sensing the tension that will forever mark the liberation of Dachau, a place where history and human nature collided in ways that no paper could ever fully capture. The aftermath at Dachau, May 2nd, 1945. Dachau, Germany. Early morning, the first rays of sunlight stretch over the camp, but they do little to warm the shadows that cling to the barracks, the crematorium, the barbed wire. Inside the compound, American medics move among the living and the dead, their faces pale, their hands trembling from what they have seen. Survivors, thin as shadows, gathered near the fences. Their eyes are hollow, their expressions a mix of relief, disbelief, and rage. Some whisper to one another, recounting the horrors they endured, the beatings, the starvation, the fear, that never left. Among the SS prisoners who survived the immediate executions, silence reigns. They sit in groups, still shackled, some trembling, some defiant, others staring at the ground as if trying to will themselves invisible. The weight of the American soldiers' anger is palpable. Captain Felix Sparks walks the perimeter. He sees a young guard, barely 16, shaking. The boy's black uniform is stained, torn. Sparks feels a cold knot in his stomach. This is not victory. This is not justice. This is the raw, unfiltered aftermath of human emotion meeting unimaginable evil. A sergeant approaches Sparks. "Sir," he says quietly, "they're asking what happens next. The men, they want to know if we'll turn them over to the courts or something else." Sparks takes a long breath. "The law decides," he says. "We don't." But even as he speaks, Sparks knows it is not that simple. Some soldiers will never forget the smell of burned bodies, the pleading eyes, the photographs, the piles of clothing, the letters, the toys. Some will carry it as a justification in their minds for actions that cannot be condoned, no matter how human. Meanwhile, reporters and photographers begin arriving. Cameras click, pens scratch. The images of Dachau will soon travel across the world. Black and white photos will appear in newspapers, showing emaciated survivors, heaps of corpses. The watchtowers that once overlooked terror. The world will see the atrocities. The world will not see the faces of the American soldiers as they struggled to contain their fury. News reaches London. Churchill reads dispatches detailing the state of the camp, the executions of the SS guards, and the initial reactions of the troops. He exhales slowly. Relief that the war is nearing its end is tempered by the knowledge that every death in the aftermath will be scrutinized. Every action leaves a mark on history. In the American units, there is quiet reflection. Men write letters home, some confessing the horrors they witnessed, others trying to make sense of what they did or allowed to happen. Chaplains move among the soldiers, offering words of comfort, but the comfort is thin. The moral fog of Dachau will linger for years, even decades. Patton reviews the situation himself. He knows he cannot erase the events, cannot rewrite what happened in the heat of the moment. But he can impose discipline, record the facts, and ensure that moving forward, the actions of his army reflect the principles for which they fight. And so, Dachau begins its transformation from a site of horror to a symbol, a just of Nazi cruelty, but of the tension between human emotion and military law, between vengeance and justice. It becomes a place that will haunt, teach, and demand reflection from everyone who stands in its shadow. As the sun climbs higher, the camp is quiet. But beneath the surface, in the minds of men and leaders alike, a storm of questions remains. How do you honor the dead while restraining the living? How do you face unimaginable evil without being consumed by it? And across the Atlantic, in London, Winston Churchill pens his own reflections, knowing that even as the Allies approach victory, the moral reckoning of Dachau and the human choices it forced will echo far beyond the end of the war. The Weight of History, May 3rd, 1945. London. Evening. Churchill sits alone in his study. A single lamp casting a pool of light across stacks of papers. Outside, the city hums quietly, its citizens weary, yet alert. As if they sense the final act of the long nightmare is near, he rereads the reports from Dachau. Each line is clinical, yet behind the words he can feel the human reality, the fear, the anger, the unimaginable suffering, and he can feel, too, the consequences of the actions that followed the liberation. Churchill leans back, fingers drumming lightly on the desk. He thinks of Patton, brilliant, impulsive, consumed by the drive to win, and of the soldiers who, in the moment of facing evil, lost a measure of themselves to fury. History, he knows, will judge more than battlefield victories. It will judge the restraint, or lack thereof, shown by those who faced monstrous crimes firsthand. Dachau is not just a camp. It is a mirror. A place where morality, law, and emotion collide in ways that no general strategy or prime minister's memo can fully control. Across Germany, Patton continues to move his forces east towards Munich and beyond. He enforces discipline, ensures reports are written, and personally watches that prisoners are treated according to the rules of war. His men respect him, but many carry Dachau in their minds like a shadow they cannot shake. Soldiers write home, not about glory, but about horror. Letters speak of emaciated survivors, piles of corpses, and the burning question, what would you have done? Churchill knows there will be questions in history books. Questions about the executions of SS guards, the fury of men who have seen too much. Questions about morality in wartime, and whether justice and vengeance can ever truly be separated. He leans forward, pen in hand, and begins drafting a speech for when the war ends. Not a speech of triumph, not one of political victory, but one that acknowledges the complexity of human nature. In the face of evil, unparalleled, men are tempted to abandon law for vengeance. Yet it is precisely our commitment to justice, even in the darkest moments, that defines us. Dachau will remain a testament not only to the crimes of the guilty, but to the restraint of those who survived them. In Bavaria, survivors of Dachau begin tentative steps toward rebuilding. Soldiers work alongside them, clearing debris, providing aid, and documenting atrocities for the world to see. Even amidst liberation, the shadow of what happened lingers, a reminder that moral courage is as necessary as military courage. And though the war edges closer to its end, the lessons of Dachau will not fade. Churchill knows that in decades to come, people will still ask, how did men confront unimaginable evil? How did leaders respond when righteous fury collided with the law? And most importantly, how did humanity survive? In the quiet of the London night, Churchill closes the report folder and looks out over the city. Somewhere across the sea, Patton contemplates the same questions in the same way. With the same weight pressing upon his shoulders, Dachau is liberated. The war is almost over. But the reckoning, the understanding of human nature, morality, and the cost of vengeance has only just begun. Lessons and Reckoning, May 4th, 1945. Dachau midday. The camp is quieter now. Survivors are being transported to hospitals, the dead buried or cremated. The evidence meticulously catalogued for trials yet to come. American soldiers patrol the grounds with careful steps. Aware that the eyes of history and their own consciences are upon them, Captain Sparks walks past the barracks, noting the silence. Gone is the chaos of the first hours after liberation, replaced by a heavy, reflective calm. His men are subdued, many staring into the distance, replaying the scenes in their minds. He wonders how any of them will sleep tonight or tomorrow. How many of them will see images in their dreams that will never leave them. Patton's headquarters issues final directives on the treatment of prisoners and the preservation of evidence. The general himself is on horseback, moving among his units, speaking quietly with soldiers, reminding them, our honor is as important as our victory. Remember this, always. Meanwhile, reports reach London, Paris, and Washington. The story of Dachau's liberation spreads. The focus is on the atrocities discovered, on the cruelty of the SS guards, on the heroism of the liberators. Few, if any, note the painful moral choices made in the aftermath, the shootings, the raw human reactions, the struggle to balance fury and law. Churchill writes in his private Sprumuthi journal that night, history will judge the deeds of men under duress. We must measure not only victory, but the restraint with which it is achieved. Dachau shows both the heights of human evil and the fragile, dangerous nobility of those who confront it. Across the Atlantic, Patton meets with his officers, reviewing every report, every witness statement. He ensures the facts are recorded accurately. The men who acted outside orders noted, but also contextualized. He knows there will be consequences. There will be inquiries. But he also knows that understanding, not blind punishment, is necessary. In the weeks that follow, Dachau becomes a site of reckoning. Investigators, journalists, and historians begin to piece together the full picture, the horrors inside the camp, the acts of vengeance, the restraint that was enforced, and the moral dilemmas faced by those who were neither victim nor perpetrator. Survivors testify. Soldiers recount. Leaders reflect. And slowly, the world begins to grasp that victory is not merely the defeat of an enemy, is the triumph of law, of conscience, and of humanity itself, even in the shadow of atrocity. Churchill and Patton, separated by an ocean, share an unspoken understanding. The war is ending, but the lessons of deconfliction with evil, the danger of vengeance, the necessity of moral courage will echo far beyond the battlefield, and as the sun sets over Germany, the camp stands as a silent reminder that in the face of unimaginable evil, humanity's greatest challenge is to act with justice, even when every instinct screams for fury.